Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family amongst lords of consciousness. I am a void.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting on a hill in a shack in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas, live here on the Fringe FM. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, and we're live. It is April the 25th, and it's 10 after 10 here on the East Coast. It's actually 9:10 here in Arkansas. 10 after 10 on the East Coast, 10 after 7 on the West Coast, and I'm stoked because Jason Quitt is back. I got the book, I read Gates of Anunnaki, and I got a buzz off of this thing, and I want to jump really quick into this conversation, but first I want to say to those that took a slight offense to the rant that I did last night, well, some of you missed the point. You got a little polar about it. I'm not advocating for anyone to stay in anything negative, ever. Actually, it's more about how to separate from that stuff, right? Because we like high vibes, high vibrations, far out frequencies, and all that stuff. So if you misinterpreted it, sometimes I just speak and then I think later. That's kind of my thing sometimes, you know. So apologies. I don't ever want anyone to stay in any bad situations. Please do not do that. All right. So now let's get this going. I want to read this real quick just to start the show off. Isaac Newton's translation of the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. And this isn't from the year 1680. It's very, very short. And it says, "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above. And that which is above is like that which is below. To do miracles of only the one thing. And as all things have been and arose from one by ye meditation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. The sun is its father. The moon is its mother. The wind hath carried in its belly. The earth is its nurse. The father of all perfection in ye whole world is here. Its force or power is entire if it be covered into earth. Separate thou ye earth from ye fire, ye subtle from the gross, sweetly with great industry. It ascends from ye earth to ye heaven, and again, and it ascends to ye earth and receives the force of things superior and inferior. By this means you shall have the glory of the whole world, and thereby all obscurity shall fly from you. Its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. So was ye world created. And from this do come admirable adaptations, wherefore ye means or process is here in this. Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. That which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended. And that was Isaac Newton's translation of the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which that tablet based a lot of tons of the mysteries and the mystery schools, and lots of things that we are going to talk about tonight, because Jason Quitt in this book has, in my opinion, unlocked like I told you guys, Manly P. Hall talked about divine revelation, and then there was like 7 keys to it that you could interpret the truth in 7 different ways. They're all true, and it's all revealing. Well, this one was probably, in my opinion, one of the deepest mysteries, and I think Jason cracked it with this book. Probably Astral Genesis and this book. I think I just saw Dragon Rose said that she got the book and now she's getting Astral Genesis. Thanks, Wu-Tang Hazy, for the $10. Appreciate it, brother. So let's bring on Jason, man. What's up, brother? Thanks for coming back. It's good to have you here. I'm glad you're back, man. Like
my video here.
You don't see it? Oh, what did you say?
Now I'm good. Now
you're good. Okay, cool. So I'm stoked. I'm buzzing on this book, man. There's a lot of math in it, and I think this is not a book that you're going to grab, number one, where you can just read it and put it down. Like, I realize this is a reference book, you know? This is a book where you might get a download after you learn all this stuff and then go back to this book and say, yeah, I knew that was the number. As a matter of fact, you were telling me before the show that just happened to you again, didn't it?
Yes. People will share stories with me about. Well, I was just telling a story that a gentleman came up to me to show me this picture of a temple somewhere in Asia, and he was saying, "How did they get this like 80-ton block at the top of this tower, which is 216 feet high?" And I said, "Wait, what number did you say?"
Right.
So, and if you get the book, that's one of the key numbers is 216. That keeps repeating itself in temple designs all around the world, and we go into why that is. But these examples continually show up in various examples.
And all of the stories, whether it's like all the different stories that go back to, I guess you say Mesopotamia or the Anunnaki or the Egyptian stories. I had no idea there was this many stories. I thought I knew a lot about it till I went back and just read, the shorts where you're going over each story. I'm like, man, I've got all these stories and these different god names and stuff, but yet the numbers keep coming out the same. So first question, before we start diving into the book, because there's the bigger questions. After we see this pattern, okay, to you at this point, there is no doubt that this place was, it's obvious, it's a dumb question, but to you, there's no doubt this place was created. It was created. It had to have been, man.
Well, everything is created.
It had to have been.
Everything is absolutely created. The question is that, and I keep going over the same question in the book, is the main god archetype in many of these mystical teachings was referred to as a builder or an architect, and even in the mystery schools, they continue talking about like the masons. What is a mason?
The builder,
or a stone
right.
mason? It's a builder. Yep. And it's based off of the builder of the Temple of Solomon. So it's the secrets of Hammurabi, which is the builder. I believe that's what it is. It's the builder of the Solomon's Temple. So you get these archetypes of this grand master builder that, just like Ptah in Egypt, he's the architect of creation. He builds it, and with his heart and his breath, his mind, he puts them together, the will and the force, and there's creation. So the question that I keep posing in the book is this the divine mind of the creator that we're witnessing? And this is the way that we can connect with what we describe as this creator God. To read the blueprint of this creation is to know the creator, is one aspect. And the other aspect is this created universe based on a fundamental law? And is that law what we call God and creation? So creation comes out of these laws of nature. The combination of these laws is the creation itself. And are we looking at the laws aligning creation in a way that it functions and brings us our reality? So these are like very deep questions to meditate on. Obviously, there's no one that knows the answer to this. It's something that we meditate on. It's something that all mystics have meditated on and tried to figure it out. But the way that we can experience it and go forward is not an abstract concept. Okay, we live in a world of, just trust me, or just believe this dogma, or and if you don't do it, God's going to be mad or something. Like, we have to see things in a completely different way, where creation itself, the creator, we can find it in everything. And once we find it in everything, that's when you know you're on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah. This is cool. Like so if you're looking for the ultimate truth of like, what's the answer to reality and life after death and all that stuff, it's not real. This isn't really the book. This book to me is the revealer of, when I say, is this place obviously created? The reason why I'm saying that is because the scientific theory is that the Big Bang happened, right? The Big Bang happened, and then probability, just like a bunch of coin flips, just kept happening so randomly and chaotically till everything worked out perfectly here, which is like, that's a crazy explanation to me. Yet here you're showing all of these different gods that are, and systems and religions that are miles apart on both sides of the world, telling the same story, that have the same numerical coded numbers underneath it, that are given the measurements of the spheres that are around us. How is this possible? Right? Like, how is this even possible?
Yes. And I don't know who coined this term. You may know this, but basically coincidences take a lot of practice, or a lot of planning. Coincidences take a lot of planning. And this is what we're seeing. So there is this kind of consistency when it comes to these spiritual texts or spiritual understandings, that there is a formula, there is a way of navigating the understanding of creation through numbers and geometry, and applying it through the as above, so below principle, just like you said, you quoted at the beginning of the show, which with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And, I couldn't have said it better, obviously.
Well, that's the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, but yeah.
Of Hermes, yes.
Yeah. But that's so many like great minds interpreted that text because they knew, I think, like Isaac Newton, you probably have delved deeper. I'm not saying you know more than Isaac Newton, but I wonder what he would say, right? Because he knew there was some truth to these, the as above, so below, how the sun, the moon, and the earth and all the stuff is connected in a fractal way. Like, he was a smart guy back then. I do wonder what he would say, is if like, here, read this, read this, and then look at the math.
Yes,
and their freaking minds back then, I bet.
And like, here's the thing: it's like, if you say, show me the math of the flower of life in Platonic solids, it's a very well-known, established thing. You can measure the angles of a tetrahedron, a dodecahedron. Like, these are very consistent, perfect numbers. These are, but where did they come from? Well, Platonic numbers are named after Plato, so it's like, and then where did that come from? Well, these numbers, where do we get the number 360 from? You know, we keep using the number 360. We got it from the Sumerians. Why did the Sumerians choose 360? Because it was divisible by certain numbers, and you could divide 360 by many different numbers. Therefore, it was very easy to use. But that's a very simplistic understanding of why they would choose that number. There was something to do with very specific numbers and their divisions and their multiplications that, in the right sequence, they could map out creation. And I believe that's what counting and numbers were originally designed for. It wasn't just trading goods. There was this spiritual side, or the spiritual understanding to numbers, where to understand creation, to understand the world we live in, and to understand our reality, we had to figure out a system of numbers that everything worked under. And I believe, just with the texts of the Sumerians from the tablets, they were very well aware of this. And this is why they chose that numbering system. And we still use this numbering system today, not because it's easy, because it's so perfect in its form already.
Exactly. So I want to get into some examples here. So let's talk about one of the first things that start to wake this up. You know, you hear the stories of like all this birth, death, and resurrection, and incest and war, and all these, and this is what we've based off. I imagine the Babylonians back then were like, this really happened, and you know, they had their own versions of heaven and hell, but there was also the story of the birth, death, and resurrection, and also the correspondences to the solstices and things like that happened in every single one of these stories, right, in some form or fashion. But then it's like they throw in a key. It's almost like the Easter egg is somewhere in the story. So, for instance, like in Gilgamesh and your book, you talk about this, and then you show the quote here. So in the celebration of the victory, you know, Enkidu tells Gilgamesh to cut down the sacred cedar tree and fashion it into a door for the city, right? And then gives the exact numbers for it's like playing a video game almost, you know? You went through the story, here's the key to the next level kind of thing. Doesn't it seem like that, right?
Yeah, and it's very strange because sometimes it's a very random thing, but it's very significant. And then you say, well, why did they even include that in the story? Like, sometimes it makes no sense why they would put this information in the story or repeat it over and over again. And they make it a point in Gilgamesh, like you said, with the door, he mentions the door multiple times through the story.
Right.
So why would he mention the door? It's just, you know.
And then give the numbers for it. To me, it's like you're throwing the numbers out there. You haven't talked numbers until you got to the door.
Yeah.
Right? Why does that matter? Like, if they were just telling a story, first you got to think about it this way. If it was just a story, they wouldn't tell you the numbers of the length of the door. They'd just be like, build a door.
Yeah.
Build it this, but no. We have cut down the towering cedar whose top scrapes the sky and make it from a door 72 cubits high, 24 cubits wide, 1 cubit thick. Its fixture, its lower and upper pivots will be out of one piece. Let them carry it to Nippur. The Euphrates will carry it down. Nippur will rejoice. These are exact. They're telling you this because they want you to get your ruler, your square out, whatever it is that the Masons used, right? Or whatever tool you used to draw it, and then start doing the math, start figuring the math and see the pattern.
And it's a very big door. Like, think of those dimensions, 72 cubits by 24. That's very big. That's a very big door. So people will see these huge doors in temples, like huge doors in churches or temples or the gates of Babylon. They're massive doors. And people are like, oh, well, obviously it's fashioned because giants are going to walk through those doors. You know, the dimensions of those doors are very special. They're very special numbers. And this is why those doors are created. And again, obviously Gilgamesh is a giant. He's I would say he is the person or the story that created the stories of the Nephilim we find in the Bible later on.
Right. Yeah. So I want to get to the big questions, but I got to save them for the right time here. I just want to come out of the gate. So what do you think, Jason? Who do you think gave us this, was it the aliens? That's what people are thinking. Was it the aliens? Was it consciousness? Was it a secret that's been handed down from man to the next man to the next man that started with the priest class? And you got to start looking at, the more you look at the math, I'm like, how did whoever was handing this down had to have been smarter than everybody at the time or something to make all this up and make it fit. It just doesn't make sense, bro.
I would say that don't discount the human race with anything.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're smart enough to figure these things out ourselves. But also, I think that we channel, we meditate, we receive information from wherever it comes from, the ethers, the earth plane, a higher consciousness. And I believe that ancient people were also tapped into this. So there could have been different schools of thought where they could channel different higher consciousness and learn these things. But remember, it's such a different time. Like we're talking about going back to the Neolithic period and then up exactly to the Sumerians.
Yeah.
That it's I mean, we're so different now that I don't even know how or what the intentions were or how they saw the world, but the only way we can see it is through their writings, and this is where we get these systems from. So this is what I was trying to show in this work and break it down in a way that it was not just astrological, which many people use the word astrotheology, where these stories are allegories to the movements of stars and planets and the earth and the sun. But it also has this kind of numerological aspect to it. Yeah, so it has, whoever wrote these original stories, in my opinion, they were just on another level. And they somehow wrote it into a story where you would never see it unless you were told to see it.
Right. But still a truth seeker would ask, they wrote it in a way, like you mentioned earlier, that a truth seeker would ask, well, that's a great story. It's dramatic. All this stuff happened. But they throw exact measurements in there. A common sense person would be like, well, that's kind of random. Another person would be like, that's not random. They don't have to tell you. There has to be a point to it. Right. So this was one of the first things you discuss in this book, by the way. So Gilgamesh, the story of Gilgamesh, and then you go all the way to the Bible, and let's say you go to Gilgamesh, then you go to Egypt, then you go to the Bible. We're talking about thousands of years apart on this stuff, and yet here we're finding these same numbers, right? So when Enkidu instructs Gilgamesh to fashion the tree into the door of 72 cubits by 24 cubits and 1 cubit thick, if you multiply those numbers, that comes to 1,728 square cubits. That's a secret numerical key found in Revelations. It's the
cubit.
It's the cubit. Yeah. The city was laid out like a square as long as it was wide. He measured the city with the rod and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length and as wide as high as it is long. The angel measured the wall using human measurements, and it was 144 cubits thick. That was New Jerusalem, what we talked about before, right?
Yes.
So they're describing, in your equation you're showing here, they're describing this perfect cube.
Yes.
Right? 12 gates, 12 angels, and 12 tribes. Comes to 1,728, which we can get into another aspect of this. If you do the gematria of that final number, that comes to 9, like everything else does. 9, 9, 9, So
it's the volume. 12, 12, 12 is the volume of the cube, and that is the cubit. It's the 1.728 feet. This number keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And I was trying to figure out where this secret number was found in the book. We put a blueprint. We make a blueprint of heaven and earth and the geometry. We put all the numbers together in this geometric form, which I don't think we can give fully away, but that number is found with like right in the intersection point of the numbers of the moon, the numbers of the earth, and the numbers of the 51.84 degree pyramid. Like right in that point where they all intersect, you get the number 1728, which is the door of Gilgamesh. It's the door, it's the cubit in Egypt. It's the number of New Jerusalem. It's this number, this weird mystery number that keeps repeating itself over and over again.
Sure. And and what you're showing is a lot of different things, right? So to me, once you see, like, this is how powerful these numbers are, in my opinion. Once you see this, it shows a lot of different things. Number one, there isn't just one text that reveals the ultimate truth, right? Like, that's obvious at this point. These secrets and mysteries have been in all of the texts, all of them. So if you just read this book and you use common sense, we could get past religious war right now and just start focusing on the truth and like really get somewhere. That's my mind, right? That's what I'm thinking, you know, but obviously that might not happen, but you see what I'm saying?
The first quote in the book, like the first page, I put a Manly P. Hall quote on page 13, actually. But it says, when the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of man. And it's like that quote just keeps hitting me harder and harder every time I read it, because I always tell a joke. Like, I've been telling this joke for years. I say history is 6,000 years of broken telephone. You know, and it's devolved to such a way that we take things that are meant to be allegorical or moral or just secret information, secret translations or text, and we take it in such a literal way that we just create religions out of the interpretations of what they believe that statement means.
Right. And
then they fight about it. And in my mind, it's the dumbest thing. It's a form of, you know, my way of thinking about this quote is better than your way of thinking about this quote. So let's create two different sects that you believe that side of the quote and we'll believe this side of the quote. And then we'll fight with each other about it for hundreds or thousands of years. And then once you learn the language of symbolism and allegory and numbers and all these things, and you read that statement, you're like, wait a second, this is something completely different. It was never meant to be read this way. And it's trying to convey something that's quite profound. And this is where I believe the secret societies and the mystery teachings step in, where they understand this side of things in a way where they know that if they try to describe this to a common person who is very much stuck in that kind of fighting mentality of the literal word, they can't get through to them no matter what. Yeah. And if they would just understand that, you know, this means something else, or it was meant to mean something else, and they can say, well, that's just your interpretation. I go, no, this is the intention of the person that wrote this, you know, and then they say, can you show examples of this? I could say, not only can I show you examples of this, but we can go to different cultures and find the same stories over and over and over again, trying to say the same exact thing. So what makes one different than the other?
Yeah, man, that's totally true. What you just like. So when the reason why I did the Emerald Tablet of Hermes in the beginning is because that relationship to the sun and the moon and the stars and all well, let's just say the earth, the sun, and the moon. Okay. That relationship is first and foremost, before we even get into the number, is something that's constantly being shown as the one thing that is true in all of this stuff, right? You know.
And this is the trippiest part of this information, is that the more you dig into this and the more you see the relationships in this with sacred geometry and the numbers, you start to see this kind of extreme relationship between the sun, the moon, and the earth. And once you start to see the numbers and the relations, proportions between these bodies and the distances between them, their orbits, their cycles, their precessions, it's too perfect. I mean, nothing is absolutely perfect. And I think that's by the end of the book, I kind of show that they're slightly off, just a little.
Yeah.
But it's so slight that it's like 0.01% off. Like it's not 100% perfect, but then maybe it is 100% perfect, and we're the morons. But
it seems to be pretty. I mean, if it's not 100% perfect, the numbers. I mean, it's got to be at least 99.5 or 99.
No, it's 99.9.
It's perfect to me, you know.
99.9% perfect, basically. Yeah. But the interesting thing about this, and you know, we just had an eclipse, and the relationship between the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, when it is in perfect alignment, the Sun and the Moon look like they're the exact same size proportionally. Yeah. They're the same size from our perspective. And then what happens when it's a lunar eclipse? It's when the Earth moves between the Sun and the Moon. And then you have the Earth's shadow going over the Moon. And again, you have this kind of perfect symmetry, this perfect relation of proportions. And we say, how can this be? So this is the first kind of like weird thing. But then when you start to actually look at the numbers and their relationship to proportion and their relationship to their actual scale and miles and distance and orbit, then you realize, wait a second, how is this perfect? Because it is perfect. And this is where your mind starts to go a little wild, thinking that this is something that had to have been designed perfectly for this to occur. Yeah. And we always talk about the Goldilocks model of solar systems, where we're just, the perfect distance away from the sun to give us our climate so that we can live and actually sustain life on this planet Earth. And the moon, if something happened to our moon, we would just all die. Like, everything on this planet is synced to the tidal movement and the gravitational movement of the moon. So if something happened to the moon, we'd all be done. So we are living in this perfect balanced system that is extremely precise with geometric numbers. And I believe that this is what the ancient mystics knew about. They knew about this relationship between the sun, the moon, and the earth, and how they worked with each other. Just like you say, the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or the Mother, Father, Son. Like, it's this Trinity effect that is so perfect that it sustains and governs all life. So how do we process that information? It's very difficult.
I see what you're saying, right? Like, how do you explain fractal truths, especially fractals within fractals, right, of an exact science? I'm just so fascinated by, like, okay, here, I'll give you another example that's in the book. When did they write the Sumerian King's list, right? When did this come out? So this came out in 2100 BCE, right? Like, that's what you're showing. Well,
this is that is the earliest tablet that is found, and they believe it was created to kind of show the ancestry or the line of rulership going all the way back to the first god kings, pre-flood, 241,200 years, I believe that was, pre the tablets.
This is it's not like us searching stuff on the internet or printing in a text. This stuff is tapped into a tablet. You know, this is ancient stuff, man, right? Like, this is where it's found. And yet when you go down the king's list, if you go and you show this in the book, you show all of the rulerships, how long they ruled, how long they reigned for, which is ungodly numbers, like we, you know, compared to how long we live. So there's a clue, right? Number one. But when you add them all up, you get to that number, that other number that shows up all the times. What's 1,000 or 108,000 years, which I want to talk about the number 9 later. That's the thing that keeps flashing at me. But these are cycles. These are celestial cycles, man. I mean, all of the stuff that you're showing, whether it's on a microcosmic cycle in our scale here from the earth to the moon, right, to the sun, or even the Kali Yugas or whatever, these cycles. So how is someone tapping this mathematical knowledge into a tablet if it was aliens or something? This is where I get tossed up here, you know.
And this is the thing, and you just said it with the Kali Yugas, it's that these same numbers are not just repeated in these Sumerian texts, but they're repeated in texts from other cultures. Like the cycles of the Kali Yuga are the same numbers that are found in the King's List, same numbers. And they're the same numbers that we find in the perfect geometry of the Platonic solids. So why is the question? The question is why? And you'll find these numbers repeated over and over again. The thing with the King's List, which is so interesting, is that we have this kind of literal mentality, and we've mixed it in with, we're very much into the thought of Zachariah Stitchin. It's kind of like him and von Daniken, Chariots of the God. They're kind of like the godfathers of the ancient alien theory. And I admit it. I got the books. I grew up reading that stuff. And at first it was so obvious to me that there was ancient aliens. Right. It's obvious, right? Because of those books, it was so obvious. And then you start reading the tablets yourself and you're like, wait a second. This is written in a very different way than it's being interpreted. And it's written in this mystical way. And so when you look at the King's List and you're seeing the pre-Diluvian King's List of the, I think it's the 5 kingdoms and 8 kings, which equals 40, by the way. It's another number we talk about in the book.
It's so trippy, man. It's like, it's just too trippy. It really is.
It's the number of Enki. But when you look at these numbers, one of the kings, he ruled for 43,200 years.
Yeah, 43,200. That's Enmenluana.
Right. So he reigned the longest. But look at that number, 432. We all know that number today. Everybody wants to tune their guitar to 432 hertz.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
Because it's they believe that is the resonance of creation. That's the resonance of the human. It's the resonance of the sun. It's the resonance of the earth. It's a very, very specific number. And when you start to, what I did was, when I saw all these numbers, I said, wait a second. Let's add the kingships together, because like sometimes the kingships, there was 3 rulers in one kingdom over the span of, let's say, like you just said, 108,000 years.
Yeah. So Enmenluana was 43,200 years. Enmengalana was 28,800 years. And I think it's Dumunizid or I don't even know how to say it right.
Yeah, they're difficult names.
Years.
Yeah.
By the way, all 3 of those numbers in Gematria is 999, right?
Yes.
Then it equals to 108,000.
108,000.
9 in Gematria again.
And I just want to reiterate something, because people always come back to this and say the Sumerian number system is based on the base 60 model. So of course it'll add up because, you're using variations of 6. So you got 6, 60, 600, 3,600,
Sure.
right? These are like the breakdown of the Sumerian numbers. But where do we hear those numbers? 6, 60, 600.
Oh yeah, we've heard those numbers many of times. That's our Social Security number, man. That's the Monster Energy drink. That's the,
right.
You see what I mean? Like, or it's another code, right?
Right. Right. So they understood this code, and when I hear those numbers, it's the base numbers of physical reality, right? Where 9, so say 6 is physical reality. You got the source, let's say above is source.
3, yeah, the first.
Okay, and it
3
spirals down to create reality, which is the 6.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're in reality. Let's call reality the beast. Physicality, you're the beast, right? Mm-hmm. And then you die and you leave, you spiral out, come up to the higher, what is that? It's the 9.
Yeah.
So, and these are the numbers. And remember, numbers are things that are created. We've created these numbers. We've created these symbols to represent numbers. All right. And there was a lot of logic that went behind the numbers, but they're still created by humans, and they have deeper symbolic meanings in the symbology of the numbers themselves as well. So you have the flip from 6 to 9, the as above, so below. And when you take the numbers like we're seeing, the same numbers with the Platonic solids, they all reduce to the number 9.
Yeah. Yep.
So you can take all of creation, physical reality, the number, you can have a string of numbers as long as you want. It doesn't matter how long that string of numbers are. If they're the numbers of God, let's say, that follow the pattern of creation, and then you reduce those numbers down to their base number, they will all reduce to the number 9, which is incredibly symbolic. And this is what makes them sacred or holy numbers.
Man, yeah, and it gets deeper and deeper too. It doesn't just. That's the thing. That's another cool thing too. That first off, Tesla said if you understood, 3, 6, and 9, you'd understand the keys to the universe, kind of thing, right? So, but did Tesla even see? Like, it makes you wonder who actually, out of all the smart people that existed, did Jason Quitt? Like, did he know this before? I mean, because you can see this stuff in other things, right? Like, it's almost like our consciousness that the minute we see 369, or we see it like if we even went to school and we saw a pattern and we said, oh, that works out perfect. And then unlock something in our consciousness and we start seeing it everywhere. But did they see it in all of these stories, right? I mean, did they see it in all the religions? And we're talking about thousands and millions and billions of people that believed in all these gods and these things. And just, yeah, that's some pretty cool numbers. Anyways, when we go into church, like, how many people actually stopped and was like, no, hold on a second, Like, you see what that's what I can't get my head around. Because why is it still a mystery?
Because it's so obtuse, like, and that's a math joke, but
you're talking about obtuse angles.
Yes.
Angles. Yeah,
it's very obtuse. That's the reason, is because it's just, you have to be told what to look for. If you're not told what to look for, you're not going to see this. And there's a book that I have. It's a very special book to my heart. His name is John Mitchell, and he wrote the book. What's the book? I put it in the back of the book. He wrote the book, How the World is Made. And he goes over sacred geometry and the numbers. And he's showing all the different geometries and the angles and all the numbers that come out of it. Brilliant book, brilliant mind, this John Mitchell. He's no longer with us, but I wish he was. I'd love to talk to him about this stuff. And so these numbers are known, they're known. And I love that book. And when I was reading The Herds of Nana, which is another ancient tablet from the moon god, this is the moment. It wasn't Gilgamesh, it wasn't the King's List, it was the Herds of Nana. I was reading the Herds of Nana tablet, and he's describing the temples that he has in heaven.
Yeah.
And in those temples, he has basically stables that hold his cattle. And he starts naming all the cattle and their numbers. How many of this cattle does he have? And how much of these cows does he have? How many young cows? How many old cows? How many cows are we going to eat? He's naming this huge list with putting numbers next to it. And I'm looking at this tablet, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm like, these are the numbers that John Mitchell was talking about that build creation. And what are these numbers doing on a tablet that's almost 5,000 years old?
Exactly, man. Somebody was taking a chisel going tink, 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 doing like advanced vortex math. Like what? Now that doesn't make sense. Like this is stuff that we had to go to school and do. Take out a calculator, look at these patterns. Get your internet tools out. Now these people are like dinking it with a hammer and a chisel, and this stuff is amazing. I mean, somebody had to have known it because it was written. Like humans knew it. It was written, but
and this is like. We'll probably get into it later, but this pulled me right back to the Astral Genesis work that I did in the previous book, which basically goes over the angles. So I talk about this lost language. It's like the Tower of Babel. Like once we had this language, which was the language of the stars and the numbers and the cycles, like this was a language. And because we knew this language, we were able to accomplish so many things because we basically conquered reality by understanding the numbers that make creation or make the stars move, make the sun move, create eclipses, create the seasons, when to plant, when to harvest. This is foundational knowledge that separates humans from animals. This is how we stepped up to become humans, in my opinion, is to understand the numbers of creation, the movements of the stars, the cycles, how to build a community, how to farm, how everything was based on knowing this information. And I kind of went backwards to this kind of Astral Genesis thought where if they didn't have writing, because remember, the first writing was proto-cuneiform,
which is
that we
like
know
daggers,
of,
right? That's just
which is just like scratches in clay, basically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the first hieroglyphs or pictoglyphs, yeah. And so this is like the first language, but how do you convey? It's obvious that this knowledge existed before proto-cuneiform. It existed before. So how would they transmit this knowledge without a written language? And then this kind of threw me right back into that, the first book in the series, the Astral Genesis book, into, well, what if they created objects and artifacts that were designed geometrically to hold the numbers within it?
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, I've studied a little bit of Egyptian text. I still got sawdust falling out of my hair from cutting trees today. I've studied a little bit of Egyptian stuff, and that's exactly like how, I mean, not exactly, but that's one language that conveyed things through storytelling, through pictographs, right? Which they obviously probably borrowed from, you know, Mesopotamia and things like that before we started really writing all kinds of stuff. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, but that's exactly right. So my question was always, how did they transmit the knowledge through the symbolism of these gods, of these pictures, of these artifacts?
Yeah.
And then I started to measure them again, just like I did in the book Astral Genesis with the Egyptian hieroglyphs. But now I started to look at Neolithic artwork, things coming out of ancient Mesopotamia, and it was exactly the same. It was, it became so obvious that it wasn't a written language. It was a language of form itself, and creating those proportions in a form, in a god. This is extremely advanced. And I think it's so advanced that this is why we never saw it before. When you look at the pictures of the Anunnaki, for example, let's say it was had to do with a cycle of the sun or the moon, they would create the image and actually put the dimensions and the angles that create the cycles and the orbits and the just the numbers themselves directly into the symbolism of that character. So that god or that character actually became the symbol of that knowledge itself.
It's so revealing too, because like bro, I've been studying Egyptology and stuff for a long time. And I thought, John Anthony West got me interested in it. And then I just dug from there, got into the mysteries. It wasn't until I even read your books, I'm like, damn, I thought I had that, symbol all figured out. Okay, yeah, this represents the sun, and this represents birth, death, and resurrection, or this represents the solstices. But dude, like I'm excited. That's why I can't talk about, as easy too much, because you revealed even more just through the angles. There's more there. It's not just that. There's geometrical angles in there too that show you a whole other thing. And it makes you see how powerful it is, right? Like when we were kids, if we'd have saw it the first time, it's like, that's a weird looking doll, and now it reveals like so much about creation and the stars and everything in one little thing. It's just, I'm excited because I'm starting to really understand what Manly P. Hall meant by some of the things that he was saying, by what's being revealed through the books that you wrote here,
Thank you. And I completely agree. And this is why I basically stopped everything like 2 years ago, or more than 2 years ago, to write Astral Genesis, because it was like I told you earlier, I was like rushing. I wrote that book so quickly because I was so afraid that somebody else is going to figure this out. I was talking to you about that because I have this thing where it's like, if I just figured something out and unlocked it in my consciousness, then it has a collective nature to it, right? Like someone else is going to get it, that kind of thing. So it gives you this kind of inspiration, excitement, and motivation to just get it out there no matter what. And I did. And ever since I put out Astral Genesis, like I have anxiety. Like I have like heart palpitations, because it's like, I feel like, and I've said this on other shows before too, but it feels like I've opened up a new thing, and it's an alphabet. It's like, I've discovered a new alphabet basically, but I only know the first letter of the alphabet. And I don't know how many letters are in the alphabet, but I know I figured out one part of this alphabet. And then when I started to read the tablets from Sumeria, and I saw this numerical code wrapped in with this astrological knowledge, I realized that, wait a second, this is the next letter. And dived right in, and I saw the connection between the numbers and the astrology and the cycles. And I'm like, okay, I have to stop everything in my life, and now I have to write Gates of the Anunnaki because it's the next letter of this code. So I'm so happy that you took the time to read it, not once or twice, but 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, because my mind, it goes nuts once it starts like realizing something, there's so much information that's getting revealed in this book. Like, for example, like when we go to the next part here, where you start, like I read the Emerald Tablet of Hermes in the beginning of the show. Well, there is an exact relation, like you talked about, to the sun, the moon, and the earth. And it's 100% perfect. And it is revealed in all of the text from the beginning of time since we first got these texts. Again, I'm kind of repeating what we've been saying, but it also shows this function of the relationship between the spheres that we live in. That, to me, it's almost like we're finally getting to peer into the HTML of the website of reality, like we're starting to see the matrix, so to speak, like people say, because this is kind of showing it. What else can we look at besides geometry and number? What else could we understand beneath that? And
geometry and number is basically the way that we quantify and define everything around us. So everything around us, our reality, is mapped using numbers. And this is exactly what Tesla said, to find the secrets of creation and vibration, energy, frequency. These are all quantifiable using numbers.
Yeah.
So Tesla, like, one of my favorites, he knew so much. And it's a very sad and tragic story because basically he died a very poor, lonely man. He should have been the richest man in the world based on what he's discovered and what he's given to the world. He should have been the most wealthy person in the entire planet, but he was used. And it's a very sad story. But what he revealed and what he continues to reveal to this day, he even says our knowledge on electromagnetism is wrong. He says, like, we've only gone like to this level of understanding. He goes, but this is wrong. You don't get it yet. So we're still in a system that Tesla says we don't have right yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty trippy. We do think we know a lot. We do, don't we? But so I know we keep kind of saying the same things here. I know some of you guys have already gotten the book. You're going to see exactly what we're talking about here. So let's get into the degrees of stuff, right? The 51.8 degree thing that you found in the pyramid, which I don't want to reveal too much because you got to look. I'm telling you right now, like, you could, if you bought The Secret Teachings of All Ages, that's a reference book. If you want to unlock something about all the mysteries of all these religious texts, right? At least one divine revelation of this, you need to get this book for reference, and Astral Genesis too. Because I thought I knew all kinds of stuff about the Eye of the Pyramid. I thought I knew everything about the pyramid and all its little secrets, but I did not. I definitely did not. I didn't even think to look at, it's kind of funny, man, because the Masons have been talking about this. That's why they start showing you in the beginning, hey, get your little measurement tools out. I know you don't know why we're using measuring tools here, but you'll figure that out later if you seek, deep enough. You'll find out. And I don't even think that, to be honest with you, because my uncle's a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, if I put this in front of him, I think it would blow his mind, man. He would probably start tearing up, actually, because of what it means. You know what I mean?
I'd love that. Yeah, for sure. And I've had this response from people involved in things like this. And just want to reiterate, just so everybody knows on the record, I have never been a member of anything.
No, man. I have been. I'm not
Yeah.
worried about what people think about all that stuff. But the Masons, like, they teach that in there for a reason, right? It's not like you're just carrying around rulers and protractors and squares and stuff just because they're fun and they're symbols. There's a reason for everything. Just like when they give you the numbers to a cubit in the Epic of Gilgamesh or in Revelations in the Bible, it was put in there for a reason.
And nobody knows. And okay, let's just back up here, because this is so unbelievably huge, and nobody knows the real answer to this. Maybe. But like the cubit is subjective, because obviously everybody is different, and people measure the cubit from the base of their elbow to the tip of their finger. So my understanding of my personal cubit is different than is yours, basically.
I thought it was on the same on every. There was one time where I thought it was 18 point. What was it? From the elbow to the tip of the middle finger, like it was 18.3 or something on everybody's body or something like that a long time ago. I thought that was real until I met somebody who was different. I was like, oh, okay, yours is different. Right.
And then, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. That's the beauty of this thing, because it's just about proportion. It's just proportion. And then they say, okay, well, the average ratio, which they talk about a lot in the Egyptian cubit, is I think it's like 20.6, which basically adds up to 1.728 feet, basically, which is the number that we continually. Oh,
what happened? Are you gone? You're still here. I still see you.
Okay, good. My thing froze completely, so we had just a little glitch there. Okay, so I'll just go right back. So before it glitched out, I said the Egyptian cubit is 1.728 feet, and this is a very interesting. All right, this is happening again.
I don't know what you're seeing. I'm not seeing it at all.
Okay. Well, anyways, maybe the Matrix is saying, Jay, don't say this.
It tried to kill our stream. It killed our stream a while ago, man. Like I'm getting healthy. Everything's good on the stream right now.
Okay. Well, it's just my thing is completely frozen. I can still hear you though, so that's good. But it doesn't matter. I think that once we see the numbers, the answer is in the book of why we have 1.728 feet. And it has to do with the relationship, like you said before, the relationship between the sun, the moon, and the earth. And we have that divine proportion within us as well. That's the key. The key is this 1.728, which is 72 times 24. The gate of Gilgamesh, like you said. But there's so much more that is revealed by these numbers that look. It's
hard,
great.
It's hard to get it all out, isn't it?
It is, but it's great for me to talk about it and speak about it with people, because remember, it's like I feel like I'm just kind of, this is my office. This is where I spend my time. And I'm talking to myself as I'm writing, right? So I don't know if people are going to get this. I don't know if it's going to translate properly. But I know, like someone like yourself who's been involved in the mysteries for quite a while and has read all this different occult things, alchemy, mysticism, biblical texts.
Yeah.
It puts them all together in a way that it's meant to be. It just draws everything together into one knowledge, not separate. Everything it may be different stories, different characters, different religions, different time periods, but remove all of that stuff, and what are you left with? You're left with an astrological system. You're left with a numbering system, and it's kind of like this pathway to God, showing you that everything is connected. It's difficult.
Amazing, isn't it? It's like what you're talking about right now is like when I ask somebody, "Hey, can you explain to me what happened when you saw that when you was on DMT?" And they're like, "I just knew everything, but I can't." And then they're like, "I can't really." It's like this is so our minds are polar, right? The alpha and omega. We're designed in this polar world, but creation was designed in a way, and I tell people all this all the time, that in a fractal way from creation down to where it could seem that there are 5 different things, right? But these 5 different things or subjects are telling the same truth in a different way, but telling the same fractal underneath truth, right? Which is what the mysteries kind of reveal. That's what the word occult means, just to see even deeper into the meaning, right? Like on top of it, you're reading a story about someone having a baby and a God named Jesus and stuff. But when you get down to it, it's the sun and the moon and then it's the Father and the Son and the Spirit. No, just go deeper. Go deep. It's 3, 6, 9. What? Like these are all different things, right? But they're telling the same truth. And it's like, how do you explain that way? Even when I say it, it doesn't make sense to my polar brain, right?
It's funny. I was watching a video today. I forget, somebody posted it on Twitter. I was watching Twitter today. And, basically, someone put their child into a mental asylum after they took LSD, and the kid is talking about how he sees the world now. And this is back in like the 40s or 50s. And it's about how the kid sees, or the 60s, sorry, how the kid sees the world now that he's taken this drug. And the mother was so scared of what the son was saying that they put them right into the mental asylum.
Oh my God, dude. Are you serious, man?
Yeah. And so I was watching this video, and it's interviewing the child and the mother. And the kid is like saying, he's like, yeah, I feel sorry for trying to express what I was saying, but I'm just trying to say that God is in everything. And once you take this, you understand that the fundamental nature of reality is God is everywhere and in everything. And you can experience that when you're on this drug, you know? And the mom is like a Christian, and she's like,
she don't know what to think, huh?
She's like, no, right to the institution.
And then next thing you know, they're shocking them, you know?
Yeah. And I'm thinking now, it's just like, we're having this conversation, like, to people on the outside that are not connected with this type of information and was raised, let's say, just with the knowledge of the literal sense of the Bible. We're completely talking blasphemy right here. Oh, yeah. And the interesting thing about it, and Micah Dank talks about this all the time, is that the Bible says that, it's very bad to talk about astrology. It's very bad to talk about certain things. It's like the world of the devil. But in the same breath, all the allegories of the Bible are connected to astrology. So it's like a book on astrology that tells you can't know astrology because that's the problem. So it's a very weird thing, and it's probably built in this way very specifically to keep people away from knowing what these things are about.
That's exactly right. That, to me, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but to me, that's exactly right. But you can't hide. See, this is what I think, man. People can say it came from aliens, this information got handed down, but I think this stuff is so deep and so true and so imprinted in creation, right? That I don't know, man. Like, you can hide it if you try it. It's going to come out because it's a blueprint,
Yeah, and I think, we were talking about this earlier about kind of like the Akasha records, or there's this philosophy that our mind is basically connected to the electromagnetic mind or the electromagnetic field of the earth. So that all our memories, all our experiences are basically saved like a giant hard drive in the magnetic field of the earth. It's stored in the minerals of the planet or something.
What the hell, Jason? I've been doing this video for months now, and I have not had any problems with it till we start talking about this, man. I'm not playing. I know you hear all that stuff all the time, but you're breaking the internet, bro. You know?
Well, sometimes it happens,
We're
but I
still
won't
live on the Fringe and stuff, but I'm gonna, like, people are gonna have to hop back over to the next video, you know? I have to put all this stuff together, but dude, like, yeah, so I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm thinking this is the only time this has happened to me like this, man. You know?
Well, it's fun. It's funny because right now I'm looking fine on my end, but that's probably what you're experiencing now is probably what I was experiencing earlier.
Yeah, I'm starting to get stressed, and I don't usually get stressed over technical issues, you know. But I think the computers or whatever's going on, it's like, I mean, come on, man, let's be honest. Do you think that there's something that really wants to try to stop this information? Because what you just said is like something is trying to control it, to stop it or whatever from being revealed, and yet it's still being revealed. And I'm almost getting like deja vu. I can think of another time, it might have been you and I. It might have been, I don't know, that we were talking about the same kind of things. And once we got to this epiphany point of stuff, like crap started crashing. And I used to laugh at people and say how ridiculous that was when that happened, you know. But
yeah, I'm not taking credit for any of this.
It's like not letting me stream, bro. Like not on the video, but like there's plenty of people on the station. Just anyways, I don't want to waste the show talking about this,
but it's an interesting idea, true or not.
I don't think it's true. It's just funny to me.
It's because this information was held at a very high degree, where revealing them publicly could be very damaging to you. That's all I'll say. And so there was a control mechanism involved, and we have to be careful about. And again, we just for the record, we're experts at nothing. We hold no degrees in any of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we're just having a conversation.
No, it's stressing me out, because to me this is like one of the most important things. Yeah, I would smoke weed right now, because to me this is so revealing. It's like a revelation in my life, right? It's not, to me, I'm sorry, it's not just about the audience right now. Like, I've been studying this stuff for years, bro. Years of my life I've put into this thing, man. And for when these two books come out, it's like when you're validated for the first time in the biggest way, but you're not validated because you didn't know this, but this information is unlocking a door to the stuff that you've already known. I still can't put words to it, dude. Like, I can't. People always ask me, they're like, why do you stick with Hermetic so much? What is this thing with the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the earth? And like, why is it so important? It's old school stuff. It doesn't matter anymore. And there's always been something to me. It's like, but it's still, there's still more here, you know?
Here's the thing, is that we're going to come and go. We live a very short time here, but the sun, the moon, and the earth will remain. That knowledge will still be here. And that's the most important thing. And if we all get wiped out and we come back and we start to grow again, those are going to be the guiding things that create our reality. And we'll go down the exact same path of trying to figure it out. It's this cosmic pull of information. And going back to what we were saying earlier, before they took us down.
Yeah,
Let's see if it ha-
they're blocking me from streaming right now, dude. Like, I can't tap into. Let me try something just to see if this is what I'm saying is real here. Like, I can't stream on YouTube. What could have we have said to be blocked? There's nothing, I don't think.
Well, the truth could, or an aspect of the truth. Let me check this out too.
They're talking about the Anunnaki again, or whatever. No idea. This is what I'm going to put. No idea for the title.
But it is common. Are we off YouTube? Because then I can say this.
Each time I've tried, you could say whatever you want on the Fringe,
okay,
man. I'm just on Twitch just to see if YouTube is blocking me. Because this is what it seems like. Like, we didn't do anything illegal here, right? Like, nothing.
Nothing.
I don't know. It could be in my software. Anyways, just I don't want to ruin the show by
no.
Yeah,
the show's not ruined at all. It just adds to the mystique. But what I was talking about before we were cut is that it's this concept of our memories and our experiences from our life here are stored within the earth itself. It's stored within the electromagnetic field of the planet. It's stored within the mineral world.
Right.
And if we all get wiped out for some reason, the next iteration of the human race, let's say, that comes after us, they can sit and meditate and tap into that Akashic field, the Earth's electromagnetic mind, and tap into our knowledge, what we left behind. So it'll never be lost.
Man, that's pretty cool to even say that, because when people talk about the Akashic and stuff, I'm pretty skeptical about it, but you just put it in a way that makes me kind of understand a deeper meaning to it, Like, it's all consciousness anyway. It's all consciousness anyways. Maybe in my mind was looking at it as some kind of phantasmical thing other than consciousness. I don't see it as like a library you go into and start reading things. I don't see it like that. I see it as a repository of knowledge that can be tapped into, just like Tesla would talk about how there's a mind that exists that you can tap into for inspiration. I think that's exactly what we're talking about with different words. Yeah, because this is not this. I was looking forward to this like video thing all day, but here's the thing, man. We have to get this out, man. Like this, you should be on. What's the biggest like channel is it Gaia right now? Like, you should be talking about this like right now on Gaia for sure, in my opinion, or the History Channel. This should be on the History Channel right now, just blowing people's minds with pictures and all the freaking. Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot like that, dude, but to me, like, this would be way better to watch something like this than another Ancient Aliens episode. To me, nothing against Ancient Aliens. They're cool.
To some, but remember, you get it. Like, you've been looking down this for a while. You need a lot of background, and to get this information, you need a lot of background information first.
Yeah.
And I try to give that in the books. I try to give the background information so you can follow along from the beginning to what I'm going to drop on you. But everybody starts somewhere, and just by having this information available, people will come to it when it's needed. I mean, hey, obviously I'd love to be on Gaia, or I'd love to be on History Channel and all these things to put this information out there. But again, and this is something that Gigi and I talk a lot about. We talk about how if you know this information, for example, it makes certain old information obsolete. right? And there are certain people or groups that are holding very strongly on old belief systems.
Yeah, that's true.
And even if they know this information, they would never step across that line because of the narrative they're going down, or the audience that's listening to them will not connect to you anymore if you go down this path. Which for me, it doesn't matter because
I'm like, whatever,
me. But there are a lot of I'll just say influencers out there that kind of stay in the lane that they've cut out for themselves, and they will not step out of that.
Yeah, see, this is okay. And let me give you an example of, because I'll say it. This to me is the one of the most beautiful, like, think about the word revelation to begin with. This is a revelation in a sense, right? It is a key to a revelation we have to really understand how important these texts are. You know how much the King's List or the Babylonian text, the Bible, all of these things have influenced not just our culture, but all of our lives for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And this has been under our nose the whole entire time, right? And it's like, it's beautiful, man. It's a big deal to me, and I know what you're saying. You get it, right? But it also does go against a lot of certain conspiracy things and things like that, So that is the thing, and you know me, I'm a conspiracy guy. Me too, a little bit.
I love,
as long as it's true,
right? And I've come to this conclusion that a lot of, and people will say, duh, like, why is Jay stating the obvious? But I've come to this conclusion that a lot of the information that's being pushed, not just in the mainstream, but in the alternative scene, is put up there specifically to confuse, specifically to keep people looking in the wrong direction. And I'm not saying they do this on purpose. I'm just saying this is the only information that's available to the alternative or the public. I think that once certain things get revealed, like you say, like a revelation, revelation. Once things get revealed and it starts to catch on like fire, if that information is deemed not acceptable yet, or not acceptable because it would change a belief or an idea, not only will it be suppressed, like maybe your YouTube channel right now just got nuked because of it.
I don't know, man. This has been crazy. Honestly, it's crazy, man. They've warned me about this stuff. And every time we do a show that says Anunnaki, I mean, we're back on YouTube now, but they specifically put like the definition of the Anunnaki in there. Like there's some algorithms like, you're talking about Anunnaki. We got to make sure people actually know what we're not even talking about specifically the Anunnaki, right? We're revealing like stuff that's underneath it. And yet I don't know if it's an algorithm. I don't know what it's
definitely an algorithm because of this whole, it's kind of like this pseudo science thing or pseudo archaeology or pseudo history thing where the Anunnaki is associated with the alien gods that created us. And so they kind of place whenever almost every single one of my talks on the Anunnaki gets this warning label, which is so funny because in my book, I don't give the ancient alien narrative a sentence. In the entire book, there's not one sentence that connects the Anunnaki to ancient aliens. Not one. I give the standardized historical definition, which is the children of Anu, which means the sky, and Qi, the earth, the goddess of the earth. So the children of the heavens and the earth are the Anunnaki. That is literally the definition of the Anunnaki. So I'm not stepping over any lines. I'm literally giving the definition that you can find on Wikipedia, you know. But then we take it to that deep level of these are the natural forces of creation of our reality, and this is the hierarchy of the gods, or the hierarchy or the division of the natural forces from the dark abyss, the dark waters, into the light of the created world, into the natural elements of the earth, the wind, the fire, the water, the seasons, the planets. All of these are gods personified. And once you break it down in that way, you can see that it's literally the story of creation itself from the perspective of these ancient people.
It just I have so many questions now because, okay, let's talk about the degree, the 23.5 degrees. Okay.
Sure.
This is the angle of precession, right? The angle that we sit on the earth at 23.5. We know this now. We've learned this, but yet what you have revealed in here is that through these, I guess you could say statues, pictures of all these different gods that date back to God knows when, BCE. There's all kinds of different ones on here. It's in even the angles that reveal that. How could they know this? The angles are in the statues. They're in there. And it's not like two of them might be a coincidence. Okay, maybe it's a coincidence. But then you get to all of them, and it's in all of them. It's like, okay, it's not a coincidence. They know the Earth's on a tilt, and they know the degrees. How?
Okay, so this is something very interesting because I really wanted to drive this point home with people with this 23.5 degrees. I'm always talking about it. The reason I'm always talking about it is because it's the precise angle of the axial tilt of the Earth. Yeah, which gives us our seasons, the cycles of time. This is the number of the Earth's creation, basically. And if you open up a textbook, like a normal everyday textbook, what they're teaching you in history class and whatever, they will say that it was a Greek astronomer from like 200 BC who figured this out. And it wasn't even popular. What didn't even get out into the world until Ptolemy.
Ptolemy.
Yep. Ptolemy. He reported this in around 100 CE. So like 300 years later, he finds like these texts from this Greek astronomer, and he's like, 23.5 degrees. And then he writes about it, and suddenly it's like gospel. Now the world starts to know that the Earth is tilted. This is 2,000 years ago, or less than 2,000 years ago. And this is what we are taught to believe. Now, you got Jason Quitt coming along and saying, this is bullshit.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Like, how can you even, put that garbage out into the world? Because I can show you it going back to the Neolithic time. I can prove to you that they knew about this angle, 23.5 degrees, and they put it in their artwork. They put it in their fertility idols, because what is fertility? It's the spring. It's the resurrection of nature back to life.
Yeah, right.
And when does this happen? It happens during the equinox. Why is there 12 hours and 12 hours of day and night? Because the Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees. So they knew this. And so this is why in the book, I really make a case to prove that one thread. Because once you understand that they absolutely knew this in Egypt, they absolutely knew this in Babylon, in Acadia, they knew this in Samaria, and then pre-Samaria, you get into the Ubaid culture, you get into these Neolithic cultures. You get into Göbekli Tepe. You get into the cultures around Anatolia.
And how old is the Sphinx? How old is the Sphinx? We're thinking it's way older than we thought at first, right? And it's sitting there showing the same thing to the pyramids.
All of these things, the Sphinx and the pyramids, they follow this 23.5 degrees, which means the builders of the pyramids, they built it in accordance to the solar, earth, and moon clock. It's an astrological monument of time and cycles. And in my eyes, with all the research I've done and all the evidence that I've put into this book, it's undeniable. It's an undeniable fact of the construction and the knowledge possessed by these ancient peoples. But we're being taught that no, they didn't know this. Or it's just a coincidence.
It can't be, man. There's too many, like from all of the different pictures and pictographs and statues. And one of the coolest ones to me is like the tablet of Shamash. You know, the guy's got his eyes on the sphere and his eyes and the measuring tool that he's holding up. And they purposefully put it in here to show you it's not a coincidence, because it's 23.5 to the circle that he's looking at. And then his measuring tool also goes up to the glyphs of like the sun, the moon, and all this stuff at another 23.5, where the measuring tool is. It's almost like I'm showing you, I'm putting this here.
Yes.
It's not just for looks, like draw the lines, do the angles, you know.
And this is also why I say this is a secret language. Yeah. Okay, because the tablet has writing on it, and the tablet tells a story. But the writing of the tablet and the symbology of the figures and their postures, position, their ratios, their geometry, what they're depicting in that picture is another story. But you could only read that story if you knew that language, which is not a written language.
Oh, man. So, what are you thinking, man? Like, I have a part of me's thinking that, okay, there were this as an ancient race that came down here and revealed all this stuff. Okay. Men of renown, Nephilim, whatever you want to call them. Another part of me's thinking that consciousness and creation is so badass that I don't even know if this is plausible, but we've unconsciously put this stuff in our arts and all of this stuff since the beginning of time, because it's so buried and deep within us.
I would say all of the above would be a transitional understanding of our world.
So trippy, man.
That's the thing. It's so trippy. So that's why I love writing books of this nature, because it gives answers, right? It doesn't just, make false promises. It literally gives the answers to certain things. So you can see things in a very specific manner or a very specific perspective. But then once you understand all of this, there's this black hole. There's this absolute void of knowledge that we have to write. We have to take that step forward because it's too crazy, and I hear a lot of people when they say they go into the mysteries, like a lot of people kind of go a little wacky,
Yeah, I can see why, because like I told you before when we were glitching out, like it's taken me years to connect to just Hermeticism. Just the spiritual operations of, the elements and alchemy and astrology, and then seeing it buried within the text of the Bible, and then like, this is just a whole other thing, man, that's still saying it's the same story, but in far more truthful detail,
Yes. And I know that Leonardo da Vinci knew this.
Yeah.
But just seeing it in his artwork, when I look at that, then I know I'm not crazy. because he was definitely taught. He had to have been read in, made aware of very specific laws of geometry and math, and how it applies to art, perspective, theme, motif. He knew these things and put them together. So for me, that was the moment I realized that there has been a line of this knowledge going all the way back to, I don't know when, very old, probably
to the beginning of writing, or
that's right,
communication itself.
Yes. So this goes right back to we use the word Genesis, goes right to the genesis of thought, of eating the fruit of knowledge. Maybe this is what that means. Maybe this is the fruit of knowledge that separated us from the garden. And once we're separated, now we experience death, life and death. What is life and death? The cycles.
Yeah.
And I was telling you earlier about, everything kind of relates back to these allegories. And I was thinking about this today on my drive home. The Garden of Eden story, they eat of the fruit of knowledge. So they know about good and evil. They realize they're naked. And because of this, they're kicked out of the garden. But why are they kicked out of the garden? It's not just because they broke a rule. It says
the red pill.
Right, but right in the text, it says God was worried
that they were going to become like him.
Because once they had the knowledge, he knew the next thing they would do is eat the fruit of eternal life and become like gods. And he had to prevent that from occurring. So he immediately stepped in and threw them out of the garden. So they would never partake in it. And so I'm driving home, right? And I'm thinking about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which, a lot of biblical stories take their themes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which came out before the Bible. And I remembered the last scene of the Epic of Gilgamesh is Gilgamesh wants eternal life because he's 2/3 God and 1/3 human. What's 24 times 3?
I don't know. I can't do like 24 times 3. What is that? 48, then another 24. 72, yeah. Which still equals to 9, but yeah, it's 72.
So I want you to just think of this for 1 second. 24 by 72.
24 by 72
is the door.
That is the door that we started the show with. It's just at the beginning of your book when you were talking about.
And what's right. And what's 1/3 of 2/3 of 72? It's 24.
Yeah.
All right. So again, it's these same numbers.
I'm really freaking out right now. I feel like I'm about to have a panic attack, dude. Like I'm serious, bro. I'm not playing, man. Like I've got all this tech stuff breaking down on me, and my mind, like I feel like I just took a shot of Adderall in a sense of like, and I've already read this stuff. It's already done this to me once or twice just reading it. Like I was thinking, how the hell are we going to even talk about this, man? Like you guys got to get this freaking book. You got to get both books, Astral Genesis and Gates of the Anunnaki, right? You got to get the books, and it's going to what I think, I hope that it does at the very least, Jason. Like I hope what it does at the very least is getting people to stop being so damn afraid of the stories or the mysteries or I'm just saying at the very least, okay, minimal. So that they can open up their mind to exploring the stuff without fear and see the beauty of it,
Yeah. And so when you go to the last chapter, the last words of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and this is the drive home. This is what kind of stuck with me today. He finally gets the plant of immortality. That was his goal the whole time, because he's mortal, because he's 2/3 God, one third mortal. Therefore, he's going to die, and he doesn't want to die. So he wants the plant of immortality, and he finally gets it. He finally gets the plant. He goes and he bathes. He puts the plant down and he goes and bathes in the forest, in a stream, in the river, and he comes back to the plant and he realizes the plant is gone. And next to the plant where he left it was a snake skin. And he realizes at that point that the snake came, ate the plant of eternal life, which gave the snake eternal life, and it shedded its skin. So he drops down, basically weeping and crying, knowing that he will remain mortal and die just like all humans, right? It's a very sad ending to this story, but I think it's a very interesting moral. And then I realized, I'm like, wait a second. Gilgamesh was searching for the plant of immortality, and the snake took it. Again, it's like the same type of theme that was in the Garden of Eden story.
Mm-hmm. And what the symbol of the snake itself represents wisdom itself. It also represents the winding serpentine force of opening up the third eye of knowledge, of the Kundalini force, right? This serpentine force is the thing that unlocks all of spirituality, right? All of the wisdom. And even the schools, that if you search the mystery schools themselves and go all the way back, the first ones were the Brotherhood of the Snake, or these snake priests, right? It's pretty trippy, man.
Very interesting how this snake appears at these pivotal moments that, because the snake, again, shedding its skin is showing that it's immortal. It has this rebirth capability, and it's renewing the cycles. And we see the snake show up in the Descent of Inanna as well, where Dumuzi begs the sun, begs his brother, the sun god, to turn him into a snake so that he could avoid going into the underworld. Because the snake is also the symbol of resurrection. It's a symbol of eternal life. It's so interesting. It's so interesting. And this is why we need to understand symbolism. We need to understand these allegories of cycles and time. And then these stories come to life in a completely different way.
Yeah, man. I'm just I'm thinking too, looking at the pyramids and how it was constructed with the math that you revealed here.
Yes.
I'm thinking of giants built those things, man. I've done construction all my life, and to do something like that, you need some precision. And you need, like, if you're going to build it out of those stones, I could see that. Like, if it was bricks and I was doing it, but those stones would be bricks to a giant, like, I don't know. I'm just thinking about all kinds of stuff, man. You're looking at the math of that, though. It still reveals exactly what everything else reveals. The moon, the correlation to the moon and the earth and the sun, and it's exact, and it's got the pyramid in there. It's exactly, it's all the same stuff. It's trippy, dude. I feel like I took some acid or something, man, every time I get into this stuff.
And, I get that answer back all the time, which is, why do I need to know this? Why is this important in my life? This is old stuff. Even if you're right, who cares? We're in the 21st century.
Who cares, really? People have said that to you about this?
Yeah, of course. Of course. The reason is because this is like the awakening of the Kundalini, or the awakening of the ancestral DNA that we have. It's our connection to our ancestors. Yeah. It's our connection to our truth. And in the world we live in today, we're very much taught to be independent and disconnected, you know? And if we're disconnected to our past, we are malleable. We are easily influenced and manipulated and formed in the image of whatever wants us to be formed in, basically.
I was just talking about that last night, man. Another synchro. That's exactly almost, I said it in a not as articulate way, but yeah. But it's completely true. And the moment you access this ancestral knowledge, the Hermeticism, the numbers, the allegories, the archetypal myths that our ancestors used to navigate reality, basically. Once you connect to that, that is a real foundation. That is a real power. That is a real magic and medicine that you are tapped into now. And now you can see through the eyes of the ancestors. And it's kind of like a hot knife cutting through bullshit. That's all I can say. Oh man, that's a good way to say it, because a knife is like represents a truth. You know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword of truth. Just cuts through it. And look at the math, man. Just look at the geometry and the numbers, and then come back and tell me all of this other stuff you've been pushing down my throat, you know, and make that make sense, right? Like, make that make sense based on what you've been telling us. The only issue now is a person's willingness to let go of the walls they've built up around their beliefs and ideals. Yeah, for sure. And
most people aren't ready to break down those walls. But when they are, the information is right there for them. And I'm not just talking about my book. I mean, literally, the information is right there for everybody. You can find it for free. They have all the tablets for free online. You can read these ancient tales and stories. And I find it so ironic. It's really a comedy to me that back in the early stages of archaeology, they were trying to prove that the Bible was real. And that's what brought a lot of archaeologists to Mesopotamia to dig, to try to find these old cities and old locations that were mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah, who wrote about Lonmo Duquette wrote about that. So they went looking for proof of Solomon and David and all this stuff. They just didn't find any like real hardcore proof that they ever existed, you know.
But they did find the cities of Babylon, Acadia, and it was from there they found Samaria. And they found all these tablets. And once they started translating these tablets, they realized, well, wait, hold on a second. These stories predate the Bible, but they're telling the same story. And then they kind of got a little quiet. Yeah.
You're messing with lots of paradigms here, man. You know,
that's correct.
It's hard for the consciousness to let go of it. But I would say this, like, it makes me happy, man, because it universalizes lots of things. Number and geometry in itself does that, but just bringing us together spiritually, what's so wrong with that? That's love. That's consciousness coming together through understanding its own codes.
The issue is we have old wounds collectively. And these wounds are deep, my friend. We have very deep wounds. And until we're ready to face these wounds and do a healing, and I mean like an actual healing, real work, we are just going to be continuing cycles of chaos and war and hate and all this stuff. And we see it being played out not just in our time, in every time. All right. The world is in a constant state of destruction, but it's also in a constant state of renewal. And there is a lot of beauty in this world. There's a lot of hope in this world.
Yeah.
And we need to focus on that. And I know that we're entering, or we're in the middle or starting or whatever, another epic of trials and tribulations, let's call it. But guess what? We've been through this a million times, and we're still here, and we're still searching, and there's still good, still morality. And I think this is also why this information is coming forward, and people are really spreading it, and it's really catching on with people, because, you could hold on to truth. Can't hold on to distortions for too long. And this is why there's frustration and anger, and it goes into chaos, because how long can you hold on to something that's not real?
That is a very good statement. The truth actually does set us free in way bigger ways than we could ever imagine. And in your book, you talk about the Tower of Babel. And now it says, now the whole earth had one language and one speech. Having one cohesive language made the population strong and able to accomplish great tasks by working together. Right?
You would think that statement alone is a blessing. Imagine that. One people, one language, whatever they put their mind to, they accomplished. Is that not positive? It's very positive, but I also look at this as what is the one language that unites us all? Think about it. It's number and geometry. Correct. The one language that is universal across all our stories and religions and everything is number, geometry, frequency. It's number, right? That's almost kind of like a hint right there. You know what I'm saying? That there's a hint telling you there's a common denominator here that can unite all these stories, mysteries, get you to the heavens, help you work together better, help you come together better, help you understand consciousness better. Or we can go down the stories and just devour that and start dividing up languages and stories, whatever you want to do here, Exactly. So I'm very pleased that you read this, and you're right on the same page as what I'm thinking. And this is why I wrote the chapter with the Tower of Babel, because, I believe that what we're trying to accomplish right now, what we're trying to accomplish, even discussing it, is to return to this original language, which is the language of numbers, the language of cycles, the language of stars, sun, moon, earth, the cycles of time, the procession, the seasons, life and death, resurrection. Once we understand this language, that is the sacred texts. That is the sacred teachings. That is what will bring this world together, because it's almost law. It is law.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's the point of all these texts, is to try to remind us that there is this underlining pattern that we can define as numbers that sets everything in motion, and you can't fight it.
You can't fight it. That's so funny you said that. You can't fight it. You might as well surrender to it. Remember what we were talking about last night? Because it's the truth.
Yeah, you can't. It literally, it is what it is, and you can't avoid it. So for anybody that searches for this knowledge, and remember, there's many levels to knowledge, and I'm not saying that I've figured it out or I know everything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this is a stepping stone to an ultimate truth, and there are many stepping stones to an ultimate truth, and that is the rope that we hold on to that keeps us moving towards wherever we're going into the future.
Last question out of curiosity before we end the show here tonight. What was the trigger? What was the spark that sparked Astral Genesis and Gate to the Anunnaki? Were you reading a book? Was it an aha moment?
I was reading the pyramid texts. I was trying to understand and learn the journey of the afterlife of the pharaoh. And I learned that it was a mirror, a reflection of the as above, so below of the sun's movements through the stars in its cycles. And it was mirrored in the life and death of a human, of the pharaoh. And I started to see the reflection of, we call the soul that we have that leaves our body. We also call the sun the soul, S-O-L. We call the astral body. What's an astral body? Astral is star. Star is sun. It's the solar body, the sun body.
That's right.
Everything was connected. And the path through judgment, the path through Osiris to heaven or hell was reflected in the stars. So that's what started this journey, is that understanding. And from there, I went to look at the illustrations of the Book of the Dead, the pyramid texts, the Book of Hours, the Book of Gates. These are all beautifully illustrated in the Valley of the Kings, in the necropolis, in the tombs. And I started to look at these images, and I started to see a pattern in them. And that the images actually meant more than what people saw in them. And that's what led me in this journey, was deciphering one or two of these images from the tombs. And then once I deciphered them using geometry, I realized that there was a very specific code of numbers and geometry that were etched directly into the images. And then I went searching to see if I could find that code in other images as well. And it turned out that it was in everything. It was in everything of these ancient pictures. So it wasn't just some doodle that some artist made. This was a very high priest that was trained their whole lives to make that image. And it had to be done with very specific geometries and angles to express a hidden language within the symbology of the image. And when I figured that out, that's when I went digging on this path that you find me on today.
Guys, get the books. Jason, thanks for coming on the show. I want to know, this is my homework assignment for everybody that gets these books, and I think we're going to find this. Go read the books at least like once or twice. After your brain explodes, then hit me up, because I'm going to do a poll. Now, what are the questions that you have? Right? Now, what are the questions? What is the biggest mystery that you want to know based on what you just learned, right? Because there's some big questions there. Mine, I can tell you, number one is why, like you said. Why? Who, where? It's down to that now. Who, where, why, and how did that get in there? All right? Like, how?
Well, I really hope you still have a show after this.
Well, it'll be on the Fringe FM if they take it down anywhere. It'll be on the Fringe FM. You can bet that. And that's why we fight to keep that thing going. Jason, please keep doing this work, brother. Please keep sharing your wisdom with us and exploring consciousness and doing what you do, man.
Thank you so much. And I will continue. I promise that.
Fantastic. You guys will be back here next week. Go check out his website, thecrystalsun.com. Grab the books And thank you guys for bearing with us. I will put the video together, but the podcast will be out too if you want to re-listen to it, probably tomorrow. Okay. Good night, y'all. Sweet dreams. Sleep tight.
Expectations of
I
spectacular
know at
or
least a few people
thunderous
got the
events.
book for sure. I hope.
Listen, clap, clap to the rhythm. On the straight and narrow down the path I was given. Somewhere in the past I was scratching and itching. Fighting over scraps with the rats in the kitchen. Anything and everything to mask in the vision. Trapped in the prison, searching for the light in the cracks where it's hidden. To separate the wheat from the chaff and the true and living fact from the fiction. The ruling class master division, but couldn't match wits with the mathematician. Take away the pretense, add to the vision. You talk loud, but you lack the conviction. Tactician back with the bone to pick a little fame. Now they act different with the shoulder chip. You wanna be some kind of prima donna throwing fits? What's the onomatopoeia for an open fist?